This podcast may contain views and opinions which are those of the hosts and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any local agency, organization, union, employee, or company, including the podcast.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Off the Clock Shop Talk. I am back, obviously. It's nice to be back, guys. I had to take a little break there. Had some family stuff going on, but appreciate you guys tuning in every week. I know, we all do. We're working on some stuff. We've been promising guests. We've been promising all this stuff. I think that we've come through on the guest portion, right? We've had some really big guests.
Yeah, I believe we have.
And this week is not going to disappoint. I just want to say welcome our guest for the week, President of Local 952, John Green. What's up, man?
Well, glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I've been watching the podcast, and you've had international vice presidents and secretary treasurers, and
hey, don't blow Silas's head up. He's gonna get
I'm privileged to be here and get in the back of that line. So, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's been great, and I got to say, for the tier of guests we've had on, you're up there. I'm not gonna lie, You're up there, man. I know you're super humble about your position and whatnot, but we definitely consider you up there. I mean, I'm not just saying that because you're my boss and you sign my checks.
He signs checks. He signs the checks.
Hey, did you already gave him that $30?
Yeah.
But as we like to do, we're off the clock, guys. Obviously, today I'm super casual. I didn't expect the set change to happen just yet, but apparently they did it last week while I was gone, and I'm wearing shorts. So get used to it. Get over it. But that being said, cheers.
Cheers.
We always like to start the show with a little drink. We are off the clock. Cheers to the Teamsters. Cheers to Local 952, all the locals around the country. Cheers to you. All right. Well, let's get started. When we have guests, we usually like to go through, kind of get to know you, your history, where'd you come from, where'd you come out of, how long you been a Teamster, all that good stuff. I mean, I guess you could start off with where did you start out? When did you become a Teamster?
I became a Teamster back in 2000, very early 2000. With Local 848, I was a Cisco Foods driver.
Oh, okay.
Is the way that I got in. And I was there for 5-6 years, and then went to Vance.
Quick question. Did you like drive a truck before that, non-union?
Yes.
So
I've driven trucks for
can you kind of give us, I don't know, kind of like what's the difference? What is the difference you saw, coming into a Teamster shop, a union shop?
Besides the wages, benefits, medical, health care.
Just a few things.
Yeah, just a few
things.
things.
I've driven double belly dumps. I used to work for Diversified Asphalt, which was a kickoff of Mission Paving.
Okay.
We used to do the seal in the parking lots, did a lot of the Vegas convention centers, Hollywood Park when they first put that in. So I flatbedded for quite a while. That's interesting stories in flatbedding. But all those jobs were non-union, and when I wish I'd figured out the union thing prior. I'd have been a lot better in pension and retirement situation if I had. But yeah, at the end of the day, I loved driving trucks, loved driving different kinds of trucks, and finally, I had one of my uncles told me one time, get in a union job and stay there, and things will get easier, right?
So you started Cisco.
I started Cisco, finally got kind of a steady income, steady hours. And back then I was 190 pounds running a ramp.
You're still pretty close to 190, right?
Oh, yeah, 190 plus a few. But there was a time in 2005 when a lot of us from Cisco, I was based over in Walnut, a lot of us from Cisco went over to Vance. And I remember Jim Santangelo standing up at the union meeting saying, hey, you Cisco guys quit going to Vance. And we're like, they're making the same money bumping docks. Like, why are we? I mean, we're running ramps, stairs, and hand fingerprint in every case. And so I think it was about 45 or 50 of us left Cisco to go to Vaughn's.
Wow.
And there's still quite a few of us there that did that back in 05. But yeah, that's where I started.
Is Cisco still covered by 848?
Yes.
We have
They've split some
members
yards, so I think 683 down in San Diego or Carlsbad has the Riverside guys.
Oh, okay.
But 848 still has a lot of them.
So you left there, go to Vaughn's. How long did you do Vaughn's? What'd you do there? You were just bumping docks, as you said?
Just a driver, bumping docks, delivering produce. I used to have the Big Bear run quite a bit, so
Oh, that's cool.
throwing chains and sliding around the mountain for a little bit. And,
So you would have been one of those drivers going up there to restock?
yeah, it's an interesting thing. It was kind of cool. We got some recognition with the big snowstorms they just had. They ended up having CHP and Caltrans
Escort them up
them up with a plow, and then
shit.
they got them up there, got some food up to those people because God, they've been.
What size rig
for
did they
over a
take up
week.
there?
They were all 50s, I believe.
Yeah.
They were all 50s, maybe a 53. But yeah, we had eight trucks escorted up finally to get them some food.
To
up there,
resupply them up there.
Yeah,
Scary.
It's crazy, man. We've definitely had some crazy weather, right? I mean, here in Southern California, obviously this is, nationwide, but here in Southern California, we had snow where we've never had snow before.
Yeah.
As long as I've lived here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Almost going on almost 40 years, but Salvas has been here, since the dinosaurs, and he said the same thing.
Well, I was born in Big Bear, and in '69, I think it was the last time we had this much snow. In '69, in April, when I was born, they had 10 feet of snow.
Fuck, it's a
Did it
lot of
snow in
snow.
Anaheim?
I don't know. I was a little young at that point. I haven't got back to look at my diary.
We
yet,
were
but-
actually at lunch we were at Southwest negotiations for the UPS contract, and we're at lunch, and we're literally sitting down, and the waitress goes, "It's snowing outside." And we're like, "Holy shit, it's fucking snowing." And we went outside, sure enough, dude. And then, we were getting calls from the stewards that are here in Anaheim and Santa Ana saying, "Oh, are you guys seeing this snow?" I'm like, fucking crazy, dude. Weather's been kind of crazy.
Yeah, been crazy.
Fucking California.
But that's why we all live here, right? Because of the weather.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
pay for the weather.
We do pay
was
for that.
Our white, and not white Christmas, but fuck, when was it? It was February, right?
February.
A white February, when Christmas Day was fucking 80 degrees.
A white
Yeah.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, white Valentine's Day. There you go. So you go into Vaughn's, you're bumping docks. How long? Oh, did you get into being a steward at that point?
No.
No.
No, he didn't. And you have a really interesting story because I remember talking to you about this, John, and I asked John, and you can kind of lead into this. I said, John, how did you get involved with our local? And I'll let you kind of tell the story, but
I'm still trying to figure it out. I probably have a story that's probably like no other, and as far as that goes. I was at Vaughn's, really good friends with two stewards, Al Baltazar, which is now a business agent for 848, and Chad Gentile. And they were stewards the whole time that I was at Vaughn's. I worked out of the Santa Fe Springs Yard, and they handled all the stuff over there. And we used to ride Harleys, go on Harley runs, and do a lot of things. And I remember when we used to do everything, those two guys would be on the phone all the time, right? I mean, it's like
I don't
the
wanna be a
duties of a steward. And I looked at them, and Chad, and they both kind of still throw it in my face that I remember back in the day we were on a run, and I think we were doing. I think Chad and I were went to the Phoenix Bike Week by way of Laughlin and Vegas, right? Sure. And I remember telling him, I'm like, dude, I wouldn't do that job for double the pay. You guys are nuts. No time to yourself.
and now he's the president.
You're always on the phone. You have no time for anything. And so now he calls me up and says, "Hey, remember when you told me?"
Haven't had
Remember
a day
when you were
off in
talking shit?
almost 4 years?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, my story's a little different. I was very involved in helping Chad and Al and things that went on, helping them out, trying to research or investigate shit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I didn't want to be a steward. I went to the union meetings. went to the union meetings, and but yeah, doing all that work was
So, I mean,
wasn't in my forte.
For all intents and purposes, you were basically a steward, helping investigate grievances, kind of being there for the membership, but you just weren't taking the phone calls.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
I was.
you
Yeah,
were still involved.
Yeah, I was involved, but it wasn't. I mean, you got to take your hats off to stewards. I mean,
Yep.
It's probably the most important position in the local, right? Because I know as a business agent now, I depend on those stewards to file the grievances, do the investigation, set it up to where they come to the meetings, and you don't always know everything, all the details of everything, and you depend on them. To have all the facts and everything out there to give you a chance to win those things. So, my hat's off to all the stewards, and I have some really, really good stewards.
For us, especially right now in the UPS world, like, they are invaluable, and they have, I like you said, we got to take our hats off to them. They have a tough job because they're doing their job plus answering phone calls, and like right now, like I said, at UPS, we're going through negotiations. So we're super busy. Like, we're not there, and they really are like our lifeline, our connection to the membership. They really are, and we give them all the credit. I always like to thank them, and I know Sawas does at the general membership meetings. And that's not like, I'm not just blowing smoke. I really appreciate the job that they do. And
absolutely,
it's a tough job, and it's a thankless job. It really is. I know we talk about it as business agents. I'm sure you do. As stewards, the membership, a lot of the times, like, well, what have you done for me lately? It's not like, oh, you got me a lump sum of money, and blah blah blah, but it's like, well, what about this money? And you're like, okay, well, I'm working on it, man.
Sounds like somebody I know.
But you know what I mean? It's a lot of that. Like, it's a lot of thankless, work, and a lot of extra work because you're doing your job at the same time. You're, driving a truck like you, delivering packages like us. It's tough. George, cheers to George, because George is still a steward.
Yep.
He's still
Cheers to me.
Is that the code?
Yeah. So cheers to George. He's putting in the work. I really appreciate this guy. Plus, we're here doing this stuff on our off time. So he's doing package driving.
Oh yeah, I am off the clock.
Yeah.
He's doing off the clock.
Oh, don't worry. We have a disclaimer.
Okay.
So none of us are operating in our regular capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, if
we're all
Eric-
just kind of hanging
I
out.
want
on
Eric
the
to
clock
fire
talking.
me or anything.
Yeah. So, like I said, for George, I mean, he's doing the package stuff, delivering, he's doing his steward duties, and then we're doing the podcast. And we always like to say, like, it's not like I love doing the show, don't get me wrong, but it takes time away from your family, from your personal life, and we do it for the members, period. That's really why we do it. We want to get the info out there. When we have guests, just so you guys know out there in YouTube and Spotify world, when we have the guests, we want to spotlight these people and kind of give their story and humanize them. Because I think a lot of the time people look at business agents as at the local, at people like Mark, the international vice president.
That was a great podcast. By the way. I loved watching it. Mark
was great.
Yeah,
dude.
Mark. Oh, that was
Great dude,
one of our
down to
favorite
earth dude.
episodes.
Shout out to Mark. You're gonna have to sing
out to
Madonna
Mark.
for him today.
I'm not singing.
But like, people look at those people, and it's almost just like a figurehead, and they're just somebody to point fingers and yell at, and you did this and you did that, or even, I know there's members that are thankful and whatnot, but at the end of the day, that those people aren't like people, right? Like, they're just like the position. The position is kind of the forefront. That's what people see, and that's who they picture them as. But these guys, like Mark, for instance, he's a fucking cool guy, normal dude. The guy loves music. Fucking singing Madonna over here.
Okay, so it's not that normal. All right,
So he's
just kidding.
You know what I mean? But like, it's like, dude, we're just people. We have lives. I know.
Tell me it wasn't like a virgin. Okay?
That would have been a good one, though. I think next time
It was borderline.
you have a request
borderline.
for next
It was
time
borderline
you're on,
to a virgin.
like a virgin. Yeah.
So there were still some questions.
yeah.
So I
Okay,
mean, you know, it's just when we spotlight, when we have these guests and we spotlight people, we really want to show like who you are outside of what we do. Obviously, we want to go through what you've done in the union and all that good stuff, but not only that, but who you are.
You know, last week, we were talking about, with Al Burgess, our recording secretary, and it's kind of the same thing, same story. He said, I didn't want to get involved. Yeah. He goes, but look at where I'm at now. And it's kind of your story, John. You didn't want to you wanted to help, but you didn't want to get involved. You didn't want to be a steward. And I remember asking you a while back when I first met you. I don't know if you remember the first day I met you, but
I do actually. It was at a Starbucks.
yeah, it was at a Starbucks.
Yeah.
But after that, coming into the local, I asked John. I said, how did you end up getting here? And this is the number one thing that I want to get out there to the part-timers and to also the full-timers. John told me, he goes, you know what? I read my contract.
Yeah.
And I read my contracts, Alice, and I went through it, and I started asking questions, and here you are now. But that really hit home for me because he said, I picked up my contract and I started reading it. And for all of you out there, this is what you need to do to invest in yourself is pick up that contract and read your contract. And I'm not telling you maybe go through the whole thing word for word, but for part-time, read the part-time language. Read what applies to you.
Sort,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, the UPS, that could be a 2-year project.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's a giant.
But that's what stuck out to me. And like he said, he wasn't looking to even be here. And now he's the president of our local. And I want to personally tell you, you do a great job. John, you've been
Honestly, one of the hardest. I'm not even kidding you.
Yeah.
And I we have a lot of hard workers, but fucking John, dude. Like I don't know. Maybe there's only one harder worker, Ruben.
Ruben's always
Sun
here
up to
too.
sun
Yeah,
down.
Ruben's a kick-ass business.
He is.
He
But
has the knowledge and puts in the time. And so, yeah, kind of going back to what you were saying, the way it's kind of a funny story how I actually became a shopster when it happened. So I was over at Vaughn's at Santa Fe Springs until late 2017, and then we merged with Albertsons, and therefore everybody from Santa Fe Springs and El Monte moved to Irvine and Brea, right? And I chose to go to Irvine because I don't want to get my butt up early in the morning and go to work, right? So I went to Irvine, and kind of like the Safeway Vaughn's merge back in the day, Safeway guys were in one yard, the Vaughn's guys were in the other yard, and they hated each other, right? Oh, sure. And it's like that with a lot of mergers, you know what I mean? So when we merged over with the Albertsons guys, I'm sure you've heard the stories of, picketing locals and all kinds of stuff due to dovetail or entailing the guys coming over, and there's a lot of animosity there, and it is with all of them. What I kind of did is I had enough seniority, thankfully, to bid a short line shift, which was kind of a premium bid. Mm-hmm. And I bid a shift, and the shift that I bid was all Albertsons guys, right? I had no Vaughn's guys on the shift. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, one, you're going to have to get along with these guys, or they're not going to tell you. I mean, they needed me to tell them how to get into the Vaughn stores, and I needed them to tell me how to get into the Albertsons stores, or where they're at, any intricacies or anything like that. Right off the bat, I got along with them really well. Said, hey, we got to work together. This merge is not going to go backwards. It's not going to get undone. Yeah. So we better figure out how to make the best of it. And at the end of the day, we're all members. We're all Teamsters. And the quicker we can get through it, the better. I mean, when we came over from Vaughn's, they wiped out all our attendance points because they had to put in, and these guys are like,
did they wipe out all the
Albertsons hell no, they didn't, right? So I mean, anything that could add animosity to a situation did, and ultimately it was at the end of the day, kind of holding out the leaf and just saying, hey, let's figure this out and get along. So, but in that transition that we came over, we were all 630 and 848 guys, so all the drivers were 848. And all the warehouse guys were 630 guys. Okay. And as soon as we came over, day one, you've seen the difference, right? I mean, the management over here, they did whatever they wanted, however they wanted. It was, you had to ask a supervisor for a grievance form if you wanted to file a
That's
grievance.
some
Oh,
bullshit.
shit.
Ask a
Really?
supervisor for a grievance form?
And I
How
remember,
did the business agent allow
absolutely,
that?
absolutely, you had to ask the supervisor to get a grievance form. And I remember when we went into our first negotiations with Albertson, since I was in here, even the labor manager's like, no, members can't file grievances here. Like, you know, like what the hell?
Members
So-
can't file grievances here?
Right, right. Only the business agent could, and it had to be. They had this little system. You could get the grievance, you would fill it out, and you would have to put it in a locker. And then every few weeks, when the BA came around, he would collect them, and that's the only way you could file a grievance.
Wow.
The supervisors wouldn't accept them, and this had been allowed to go on for a long time. So, I mean, literally from day one, you just saw the difference in everything. I remember they posted a thing on the board in the first week we're here pertaining to DOT physicals, saying that you had to give your full copy of your physical to the management. And we're like, this is like ancient shit, right?
What about HIPAA?
We have never looked. You got to show that you filed it with the DMV, and you could, ask, prove that your doctor was DOT certified to do it. But I mean, I guess probably shouldn't say on the podcast some of the things we said to the business agent back when he told us we could do that, and we're like, yeah, no, we beat this a long time ago at Vaughn's. You guys are archaic over here, right? Yeah. They have no right. So just little things like that. That's
a huge thing, boss.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a
That's a
huge thing.
big
it
deal.
was clear
That's
as
the second
bell.
huge thing. The first one was the fucking grievances. I can't
Oh, yeah.
fucking believe that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was just clear as a bell that this wasn't the way we ran a Teamster union in our old union, you know what I mean, at 848. So, that being said, it is what it is. Now, a lot of our really good stewards from Vaughn's, they all wanted, all the senior guys went to Brea. That's where all the seniority is. So a lot of, the majority of the good stewards went to Brea.
Yeah.
And the stewards that were in Irvine were mostly, some of Ken Germain's buddies that had been point stewards a long time ago. So all the Vaughn's guys are like, we need to have a steward election, right? And so they finally, after a bunch of arguing, they agreed, you know what, we're going to have a steward election. Yeah. And so they put up the list. They had the list up there for about a month, I guess. And one of the Albertsons guys really wanted to be a steward. And I was like, yeah, well, you don't know what you're asking for, buddy, right? So, more power to you. So we used to have these party line calls for all of us short line guys, me and a bunch of Albertsons guys. We'd all have like 5-6 guys. Well, we call them party lines.
Well, you remember the
That
party
was-
line.
yeah,
Keep yourself awake, and let me tell
yeah.
you, some of the
Back in
stuff
the
said on
90s.
that party line, you'd probably go to prison for, right? So it wasn't something you wanted to air, but it kept you awake, right? You're doing a 520-mile run. Everybody, talk to everybody, keep you awake, and get the job done. But one of the guys asked me, he said, hey, about a week before the election was going to be done, and he said, hey, can you sign that shop steward list? And I'm like, what are you, nuts? He goes, no, man, because you got, a lot of the Vaughn's guys, you'll pull some of that vote, and that might be able to get me in, right? And heck with it, right? So I sign it. 4 days before they pulled it, before the election. So I went up and signed the list, and he's all, hey, thank you. Lo and behold, I won. And he didn't. Right? And I even told him
thanks,
before
asshole.
this, right? I go, hey, bro, if you're the one right below me, I'll step down, then you'll be the guy to move up into my spot, and we're all good, right? The problem was he was
He
people
was down at the
right?
bottom.
So that didn't work. And then the guy that was right below me, can't remember who it was at the time, but it was like, yeah, we're not going to let that happen, right?
Yeah.
So I was stuck, and then I'm like, okay, well, at the end of the day, I've always done the best job I could, no matter what job I had. So that's where
Was that prior to you or all of you being absorbed into 952?
no, that was after that was in Irvine, that election.
Okay.
Right.
So you guys were already here in 952.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had already completed the merge.
Okay. All right. And
So
then
that election would have been maybe July of 2018.
Okay.
So what we had already been over for
like
over
a year,
about a year.
About a year,
About
right?
a year.
And then tell me from there how you ended up meeting Eric and how that happened and how you came in. I kind of know the story already, but I think a lot of people are interested to hear that.
I don't know it.
Yeah, so what happened was I went and read the contract, right?
Yeah,
like an idiot. And, it's the best thing you can do, but I stayed up all night, right? Just reading the contract word for word, Googling phrases, Googling what the legalities of different words are and how a word can change the meaning of a contract. And lo and behold, this company wasn't following that contract at all, right? I mean, they literally, you might as well not have had one.
Wow.
So one of the biggest things I changed as a steward was there was language in the contract basically saying when they do the bids, and it was pertaining mostly to the premium shortline bids, the language in the contract said that the drivers will pick from all runs ready and available. Well, they didn't do that, right? If you had 4 guys on a bid, they put up 4 runs. Everything's a must go. If you were the bottom guy, you're stuck with whatever nobody chooses from, right? Yeah. But yet the language in the contract said all the bids have to be up there. And I had gone back and researched, and I had figured out where that language had come from. But I didn't care where it came from. I know they're not following it, right? So as a steward, I go into the manager, and I filed a grievance, and I said, hey, you got to put them all up. Now, this is as a steward, right?
So he looked at you like, motherfucker.
Well,
it was
that's great. But that's great, though. This is what we tell the stewards. The stewards can get more stuff resolved in-house if they're really paying attention, like what you were doing. So go ahead, boss.
So, yeah, I told them, hey, you got to put them all up. We can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? It would take us an hour and a half to bid. Well, I don't care. That's what the language said. You got to put them all up. Well, because it would be your short line bids for the whole day. It'd be like 40 bids.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So it was daily bids.
And then, so we bid per shift. So like on the half hour, the short line goes out. So it's like 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30. But you only have like 6 or 7 guys on a bid. Some maybe have 11. So if you had to put up 40 runs for 6 guys to look through every one to choose what they wanted to do, but that's what the language says, right?
Yep. That's exactly what it says.
So ultimately, Al Baltazar was my business agent at the time, and we kind of looked at everything and said, yeah, we kind of got them by the balls here. And we ended up getting them to agree to put 2 extra runs up on every single bid so the bottom guy doesn't get stuck.
Oh, okay.
And then we gave them the right to,
so you didn't
must
make
go.
You didn't make them
had a
enforce.
curfew.
You didn't enforce the every run bid,
right? Because it wasn't really reasonable, right? It would take an hour to bid.
Yeah.
You know, if you had to let everybody go through but we made it better for everybody. And to be honest with you, the intent of that language in the beginning was because they only had 1 shift for short line. And they would all go in on the same shift. But, it was funds management. They don't know that. They don't know where it came from. So ultimately, we ended up getting that changed, and a bunch of Albertsons guys are like, how in the hell did you do that? We've never seen anybody do that in here before, right? Well, there was a couple other little things that we got done, and they're like, we've never seen anybody do that before. And so then a couple guys came up to me and said, hey, I know this guy. His name's Eric Jimenez. I want you to go meet him. Go meet him for what? What's he do? Well, he's a UPS driver. But we want you to meet him, and we want you to run for the local. Oh, yeah. That's
what you get for reading the contract.
I got tricked into this steward thing. I'm not getting tricked into fucking run for the local.
So and it was Albertsons guy, 1 Vaughn's guy, and then 3 Albertsons guys, and they're like, no, bro, you need to go sit down with them, talk to them, and a couple of them gave me $1,000 cash. Wow. Said, here, this will get you guys started, and I'm like, you guys are nuts. No way in hell I want to do that. You know what I mean? And then a couple other guys gave me a bunch of money, and a group of them gave me about $4,000.
Wow!
Just to get us started, and I still hadn't gone and met Eric yet, right? So I go meet Eric at a Starbucks, and if you know Eric, if you're ever going to meet him somewhere, it's going to be at a Starbucks for the most part.
He's cut back quite a bit,
right? I got another funny story about that later.
We'll save that for story time.
Yeah, that would be a good one for story time. You're right. So anyway, how do you tell the guys that are going to give you $4,000 to get you started that you're not going to go meet somebody? And at the end of the day, we all knew that it was bad here, right?
Yeah.
We all knew that the representation wasn't what it should be. And so lo and behold, I went and met him, and we got to talking, and we shared a lot of the same views and said, yeah, man, I get it. We seen that as soon as we came over. So I agreed to run with him. And then it started. And I agreed, and I said, hey, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. And we sat down, and we looked at the previous elections because Eric had run before us. So we had a lot of the info. And I said, yeah, let's do it, but we're going to start right now. And that was like at the end of March, right?
Wow.
And your vote count's in October.
Yeah, and I remember the last 2 elections, and they started much later, the campaigning, and when you came in, and you guys started it way earlier than the last prior 2 times that Eric ran.
Yeah,
That
I
was
mean,
a big
ultimately,
change.
usually it's from the time nominations to the vote, you got 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. And I'm like, you're not going to beat a 21-year incumbent
Yeah.
in 3.5 weeks. It's just not going to happen. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And we did. We started a campaign. We took that initial set of money and we bought the famous black and green shirts, right? And ultimately, I had guys. I mean, just the Irvine drivers alone gave us over $20,000 in donations, and buying shirts, and going on our fundraisers. I think we went out to a casino bus trip on one, but they just jumped all in, and
Cool.
and for them to give us that much money to be able to get us to print the flyers and not, I mean, campaigning every day is hard hell work anyway.
Fucking A.
But to have the funds to be able to do it, that was, and it was a lot of Albertsons guys, a lot of Albertsons Savon guys down there that helped us out and got involved. So,
Well, I know I could say, these guys truly believed in you and supported you, and it was just a great combination of everybody coming together, with Eric, yourself, and even Danny coming out of Albertsons, and all of you guys came together, and it was like the perfect storm, because
yeah,
what it was prior and to what it is now, we talk a lot about it on the show. We're very diverse,
Very.
and I love that. And meeting you, John, like when I first started talking to you and I asked you, and you were like, I just read my contract, I got involved. I mean, you have bargained how many contracts now?
Okay. God, I don't know now. We just ratified one this morning.
Can we talk about that a little bit, or
Yeah, it's ratified. It's done now. So Republic, it was a hard fight. Literally, we had the Anaheim City Council involved, pulled out of the stops. Another shout out to Victor for supporting
Victor
us
Moneros,
because
Big Vic.
because he it's for the guys that run the MRF, the truck drivers over here in Anaheim, which we supported them in their strike last year.
Yeah.
I was bargaining the contract this time, and the guys are way underpaid, way done. We got them a heck of a deal, 30-something% increases over 5 years. Health and welfare, kept
you're
roll-up
here, can I get a
language to put
30%
stuff in the pension. So,
yeah. Did you hear that, boss?
no,
I
what,
said, since you're here, can I get a 30% increase? Over 5 years, I'll take it.
So Eric, but at the end of the day, there's language in that contract that's been in there for years for subcontracting, and they haven't adhered to it. And this local's going to take the grievance to arbitration, and we're gonna enforce
Fucking
what's
win.
there. But when you're bargaining a contract, that the contract allows them to subcontract 50% of the work.
50%.
Oh, absolutely. And it's been in that contract for years. Now, not only that, they're not even adhering to the 50%.
Fuck, really?
So if you're going to throw up a strike line, Ecology runs all their subcontracting out. They just run right across that line, right? They're not union. They don't care.
Yeah.
Like I said, big shout out to Vic because he's got 900,000 people over there that would have honored our picket line. Ultimately, they gave us the leverage to be able to get it done, and we got them a hell of a contract. We got more money in this contract than their last 3 contracts put together, I believe. So, so it was a good deal, and it was ratified overwhelmingly this morning. So yeah, at 6:00 this morning, I was I was down there doing a ratification.
Like I said, one of the hardest workers. I mean, I see you all the time here, and I mean, myself, Sawas, even George, we're here a lot on our days off. You know what I mean, doing work and doing stuff, and you're always here. I'm like, I'm gonna go home, and you're like, oh, I'll be home tonight sometime. I'm like, fuck, dude.
No, it's part of the job. I'm really, appreciative of the fact that I've been voted in and allowed to do what I do for a living. Yeah.
Congratulations on the re-election.
Thank you. Well, yes, that was good. That was really good.
It was, because your numbers truly spoke to you.
Yeah,
I know what your numbers were.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's and we hired Frank. Look, when Eric and I won this election the first thing Eric did was look at me, and I looked at him, and he goes, "Yeah, we won. Now what the hell do we do?" He goes, "Oh."
He's like, "What's the plan?"
It's like, "Hey, we just wanted to see if we could win." You know what I mean? And it was a true, I remember the night of the ballot count, and we won, and I knew we had a shot. I just knew, from campaigning so much the what the temperature was of the membership. So I knew we had a shot, but when we won, it was like, now what do I do, right?
Yeah. I will say that at least talking to Eric, me and Eric came out of the same building. The last time Eric won, I voted for Eric. Well, I should say, an election ago. When he won, I knew him as a shop steward maybe didn't know how to be an ST. And it's something we've talked about on the show where you really don't know what you're getting yourself into. Even myself, Sawas, even George, you see what a steward does, and you see what a business agent does, and you see what, the ST does, and you think like, oh, I got that down.
That's why I think Carla explained it the best. It's like there's a door in your house. It's in the same house.
It looks like a closet.
It looks like a closet. And you open it up, it's a whole other fucking warehouse.
Yeah, so you really don't know what you're getting yourself into, but I really believed in Eric because he had a vision, right? That was really what it was about. How we were going to get there, I don't think maybe, you could even imagine how you're going to get there until you're in the position and you kind of have to put the pieces together, which you guys have built a great team. Shout out to Frank Sevilla as well. Frank's fucking awesome.
Yeah, so Frank was kind of like, he was obviously, it was one of the best decisions we made. Eric said, "Hey, I know this guy. He's going to have to teach us how to do this shit because we don't know what the hell we're doing," right?
Yeah.
And I remember, meeting Frank, and I had heard stories, right? Came out of different locals. There were rumors going along everywhere, but I owe everything I've learned in this business in the last 3 years. And trust me, he threw me into the fire. It was sink or swim, right?
That's fucking cool, dude.
And but that's how you learn. Yeah. And I owe it to him for putting me in that position to where you didn't have a choice. You're either going to figure this stuff out or you're going back on a truck, right? So tremendous amount of knowledge he has.
And just to see what you guys have done with the local, and I want, all the 952 members to imagine, like really going into a position, not knowing fully, how to get that, but having a vision and seeing what these guys have done in 3.5 years is fucking insane. I'm serious, man. You guys have just...
what we've accomplished as an administration, as a local, because it's a whole team.
Yeah.
I mean, we 1,000%. have, all the way down. I didn't say down, all the way to the clerks. Our clerical staff is amazing.
They are.
Right?
Shout out to all
to everyone. Our maintenance guy is amazing. It takes a lot to keep these buildings up. Obviously, if you know how old they are, and I'm the one guy that gets on Zoom. I think I'm the only president in the whole IBT that goes on a Zoom meeting and gets to brag about his wood paneling in the background, right? So.
Motion to upgrade the building.
Yeah, a second. And you know what? A lot of people don't know when you talk about for our brother that's in maintenance and how that came about. Share that story. I know the story, but tell the membership what you guys did coming in to bring on a maintenance guy here at the local.
Danny first, obviously.
It was
actually we've had Danny, Richard.
Yeah, there was been a few before.
So what that came about was Eric, and I believe Louis Diaz that had run with Eric before. When Yellow Freight had the problem and lost their pension. A lot of these guys over there needed time, recency, to be able to retire. And so they concocted this big plan saying, hey, you need 500 hours recency or you could retire. But other than that, you can't until you reach the retirement age. So they said, hey, why don't we bring them in, rotate them, let them get the recency hours, and then bring another guy in so these guys could retire out, right? They've been a...
It's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm
so awesome.
That wasn't my idea or plan, but it's been awesome. And I think it's, we owe that. We owe that to our brothers and sisters that need help or had some bad luck.
And at the end of the day,
way.
that's literally, we talk about it all the time, but that's what we're here for. We talk about, and I'm sure it's the same for you. We've discussed off the air, but most of us take pay cuts to come into these jobs, and we don't do it for ourselves. We do it for the members.
He just gets up and leaves whenever he wants.
Whenever he wants.
Hey, well,
thank you for getting in front of our camera too.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take a break.
We took a little break because I cut off the whole thing.
Yeah, you cut off the whole camera, so we took a little break time. But break time's over now. Let's get back to work. We took our union break. We were talking about the election,
right? About
what these guys have done in 3 years, and just that whole scenario. I mean, it's been crazy.
Yeah, I mean, from the time that we got elected and Frank had agreed to come out of retirement and come back and teach us how to be business agents. The stuff that this administration has accomplished has been it's been a complete team effort, but not shy of hard work. You know what I mean? And everybody brings something else to the table that means a lot for the whole group as a whole. And put this message out to the Teamsters, because at the end of the day, I think Eric and I, our number one goal in this whole thing from the beginning was about getting people involved, right? Cool. And I remember before I had run with Eric while I was a 9-month shop steward, right? It wasn't a year when they put out that pamphlet. They were giving me a few months too much credit there, but I remember going to the union meetings when I first got over here, and you would go to the union meeting, and there were 25 people.
Maybe.
If you were lucky.
Maybe.
And 15 or 18 of them work for the local.
Yeah.
Right? So So you're looking at the meetings going, I mean, I came from 848. And when we went to the union meeting if you didn't get there early, you didn't get a chair, right? There was standing room only in the back. And we're getting our meetings now, to do that.
Yeah, we really do. The back's always full.
Back's always full.
I mean, granted, I know all the Albertsons guys like to stand in the back, but I mean, the rest of the chairs are filled. I mean, we have quite a few people there, and we're getting some more UPSers. UPSers, if you're out there, fucking come to the meeting.
Please come.
Please.
We want everybody to come, right?
Yeah,
we want everyone to come, but UPSers are notorious for not going to the general meetings.
Yeah,
they're stuck in that. They're stuck in that bubble.
Well, we talk about the brown bubble too, but I do think a lot of it is that we've had it good for a long time. We forget, because I have guys, that talk about the possible or the possibility of a strike, right? And how they don't want to go on strike and this and this and that. And I understand that, because I'm a family man. I have a family, and I understand having to pay the bills, and I worked a shit ton of hours as a driver. You can ask anybody. Older drivers used to get pissed because I would any work I could get, I would take it. If you wanted to fucking offer me missed routes at the end of the night, I was working, 14 hours a day if I could. That was just me. But I like to work a shit ton of hours. Hearing drivers sometimes talk about the possibility of a strike and how we can't go on strike, that to me is kind of scary, because at the end of the day, I think they've just had it good a long time, to where they don't think anything can be taken from them.
Yeah.
You know, and the company on this side of the fence, you see when you're dealing with the administrative side of things and as a BA and whatnot, you get to see like, oh, the company, they want to take your guarantee and they want to take your 40-hour week and they want to take your work week schedule. And there's so much that they want to take from you. You just haven't seen the people fighting for you on the backside and what that fight really is, you know? So if you're out there, come to the meetings, you know, get involved, read your contract like John did. You know, I always considered myself kind of a lot like you, where I paid attention to the contract. I knew, you know, not everything, but I knew some of my rights, and I would utilize those. You know, I mean, if I went into a meeting and I felt like, hey, I have some leg to stand on, I was going to stand on it. I wasn't going to let management go. And when I did become a shop steward, and I was a shop steward less than you, I think 7-8 months, you know, I was always involved before that. And now the meetings, that was impossible for me. And because they were on Wednesday at 7.
Yeah.
And like I said, I worked a shit ton of hours. I was never fucking off by 7, ever. Like that was fucking rare, especially on a Wednesday. It's midweek. We're busy.
Yeah, and I think when we finally, that was one of our promises, right? When we were campaigning, was we were going to move the general membership meeting to the weekend, to get more people involved. And you know, the funny thing is it's what I've learned since I've been in here so far is no matter what decision you make, you're not going to make everybody happy, right?
No, it's impossible.
But you know, it's just like seniority issues. The top senior guys are, heck yeah, that's the way to do it. And then the bottom guys are like, you suck.
Seniority sucks till you get it.
Seniority sucks until you get it, right? So, but that, you know, the union shop is based on seniority, and it's got to go that way. Yeah. But you just have to make the decisions that are best for the group as a whole, you know. So that's the way it rolls.
Yep. Moving those meetings to Saturday was huge. We talk about it all the time. We talked about it last week. We haven't seen, I mean, I've been in this local since 98, and I've never seen the general membership meetings what they are today from what they were in the past. Totally different now, right? And it's all because of what you guys had that vision to bring the membership closer. We talked about, I know people in different crafts now, CVS, Albertsons, the business agents, and the membership, and the stewards. Yeah. You know, we've actually, John and myself have gone into Albertsons with the other BAs and walked the building, which was great. Like, we didn't even know other barns existed outside of that UPS
really
bubble.
Outside of the brown bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just really are. You're just, and I've heard drivers talk about it at UPS where they're like, oh yeah, well, we need to worry about us. And I'm like,
yeah, why do we give a shit,
local,
right?
Yeah.
And you know, we have a lot of other crafts.
Yeah.
And those people are important too. Those
they don't realize how well they have it and how like some other barns don't have the rights that we do.
Yeah.
You know, and so they just think, oh, it's like, well, we have all this, so they assume that the barns throughout the whole local have that, and it's like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, I mean, you know? Yeah, look, the UPS contract it's one of the most important contracts in the country because that's what sets the bar.
Yep.
350,000.
These white paper contracts wouldn't be able to get things. I mean, look, a lot of the contracts that I bargain now, I pull language out of that UPS contract to put into the other contracts because that's your goal. That's what you're shooting for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing you say is, well, they got it in UPS. What makes you better, you know?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's, you know, I remember a grievance I just heard about the other day of a guy that had a 1 hour, what was it? A 1 hour, $100 pay shortage. And Sabas had come up to me and says, hey, man, what do you think about this? The company's willing to settle this for like $5,000. Fucking what? I mean, I'm looking at him, and he goes, yeah, but I think he wants to go for more. And I'm, what? Yeah. Like, well, yeah, because there's so many penalties, and I'm sitting here trying to wrap my head around this going, you know, at a white paper contract.
$4,900 profit. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they offered you $5,000 to settle a $100 grievance. Yeah, that's what you're telling me, right?
It took a long time.
It did. It took a long time.
And per our contract, you know, UPSers, you guys should know this. Per our contract, we have penalties, especially on short of pays, agreed to pay. If you have a grievance that's agreed to pay and it doesn't get paid within the time frame, or short of pay, there's a time frame for that. And we have penalties built into our contract.
Right.
So we'll have those penalties. But what a lot of people don't understand also is that when we take those cases to a panel, the panel sees it almost the way you do. And this is, at the lower panel, it's, 3 members from the company, 3 members from the union, right? And that's the panel. You put on your case, whatever. The panel kind of sees it like you do, where they're like, ooh, like, fuck, that's a $5,000, compensation for $100 pay shortage, right? So, I mean, that's great. Now, granted, if you counted out all the penalties and you stuck it to them for every fucking thing, I mean, you're looking, maybe you're looking
So he
at
said
10
it was supposed to be around 10 grand.
Yeah. So a panel will give you half. That's what we try to tell the membership. If a steward can get every cent, on the dollar in the in the center level meeting or, whatever your lower level meeting is, if a steward can get that done, great. But once it moves up to the BA level and, you have to have a meeting with the labor manager, maybe we can get it done, maybe. But if we have to put it on a panel, you're looking at half almost all the time. And that's just the way it works. So,
Hey, if you were non-union, you'd be lucky to get the 100 back.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no.
If you're wasting our time, you owe us $100.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I
We'll
mean,
give you your $100, but you owe everybody's paycheck for sitting here for an hour listening.
right.
To you.
And like in some of my barns, I mean, for a white paper contract, the grievance and arbitration is a make-whole remedy. Right? It means I can't implement, or an arbitrator can't implement punitive damages. You can't give them penalties. You can't unless you have it negotiated in your contract. So at the end of the day, that's where stuff that you try to implement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have Albertsons is notorious for not paying stuff on time and right? Yeah. If I had those penalties there,
See, it's not just UPS.
it would be phenomenal. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when you're bargaining these contracts, and I think what happened for a long time is, at least with this local, is they focused on wages, pension, and health and welfare, and they never tried to change language to better anything or the working conditions or hold these companies accountable that are just refusing to meet on grievances.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, wages and benefits and all that stuff, the fringe benefits, those are all huge things, right? But a lot of the things that we were fighting for, the unions were fighting for, period, in the beginning, were the language to protect safety, to protect, the hours people were working, to all those things, the workday work.
The 5-day work week,
the
the overtime.
breaks and lunches that, UPSers sometimes fight not to have to take. And I get it, but people fought and died for you to get these benefits.
Holidays, sick pay.
All this stuff, right?
Funeral pay,
so it's
bereavement
huge,
pay,
and I think we kind of sometimes, all of
There's
us.
a disconnect there.
There is a disconnect where you just think that everything is afforded to you and you should be getting this. And, when we went through an OCTA contract where these guys weren't given 15 minutes to use a fucking
That
restroom.
blew my fucking mind.
Yeah, that was
Like, imagine being on a fucking bus. You got to
Talk
take
about
a
being
leak.
in a brown bubble. You mean people can't go take a leak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what I was asking.
We don't even
I was
have
like,
to do that on break.
Yeah.
You can do that whenever.
Yeah. At UPS, I mean, you had supervisors get on car with us that would say, "No, you're going to clock out for your break." No, I don't.
Yeah,
we have language that states personal time.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm going to take a bathroom break, and that's what it is. When Al Burgess sat here last week and explained to us that whole thing that was going on about them not being able to even go to the bathroom, it really blew my mind, and that's a whole different thing because that's public sector. And they didn't have any of that language in there. And what you guys did as an administration coming in, Al, the steward, Shahab, he was just so excited of everything that this administration has done for OCTA and building the bridge to get a better contract coming up, to get better language. We've said it on the show, when you come into a contract and you bargain that, you're not going to get everything you want. But you guys did an awesome job of getting things that needed to be addressed now, and it's setting the standard for the next contract that you guys are going to ask for more. There's
That's
no
kinda
more
how
taken
contracts
away.
work, right? That's kind of how contracts work. You're
Yeah,
not gonna get everything.
so the way I got thrown into bargaining, like right off the, it's funny is because I was here at 6 this morning for a ratification meeting, and then at 9 I had a proposal meeting for West Side, which building materials over here in Anaheim. We have a yard.
I used to deliver there.
Yeah, I know where that's at.
Great group of guys. That is the first contract I bargained when I came into office, and now I'm turning around getting ready to do it again. Right, so that's
Take
when
another
you
piece of that
realize
pie.
There we
and
go.
all this time you haven't had time off for 3 years, and you're like, yeah, you're going to get it when we get a couple more, get a couple more done. You're going to have some vacation time. And then I'm like, I just flipped the album and I'm starting all over, right? and it's kind of how this works. But
Side B.
But like Frank Sevilla, so when we started bargaining that contract, and he's like, hey, you're going to come in here and do this with me. You're going to learn how to bargain. And he helped me with the first one. We got a pretty good. Are you done?
Sorry, boss.
No. So we got a pretty good contract. And on this very second one, which was one of the was the main one for West Side, we were doing it by Zoom because we had the COVID thing.
Yeah.
Negotiating by Zoom completely sucks. But we were 2 minutes from going on with the company. We had all the proposals laid out, and I'm sitting here watching Frank like, all right, we're going to kick their ass, right? And he's sitting there, and he's smiling, and then 2 minutes before we go on, he slides all the proposals over in front of me, says, you're doing it.
Fucking A.
Excuse me?
That's the first time the president shit his pants at a table.
I was just going to say, were you wearing Depends?
I mean, I was like, what? Right? And he says, you're doing it. If you fall down, I'll pick you up, but you're going to do it. You can do this, right?
He's going to walk you through it.
So, he didn't say shit. I mean,
No.
I just started presenting proposals and bargaining, and then at the end he goes, oh, you did a great job. I was like, yeah, I need to go get a couple shots of tequila. I'm scared to death, right?
Yeah. No, you really have.
That was a
John.
sink or swim mentality.
It was sink or swim, right?
I
But
always learn more when I'm.
to be honest with you, when you're put on the spot like that, that's really the only way to learn. I've taken bargaining classes. I've done other things, but at the end of the day, just doing it's a scary thing at the start. But one thing the next contract I did, we were doing Albertsons and CVS at the same time, and the CVS drivers. And Frank called me one morning. He says, hey, you're going to have to help me with the Albertsons drivers, but I don't have anybody to do CVS. You're going to have to do it, right? And I'm like, okay, West Side's a little smaller contract.
Yeah,
right?
CVS.
CVS is a freaking top five
bigger,
Fortune 500 company. And I'm looking up the guy I'm going to bargain with. He's an attorney, graduated from some big-ass Ivy League school. And I'm like, I'm a truck driver, and, and when I started that contract, I was nervous as hell, right? I'm just like, God, man, what if I mess something up? What if I make a mistake? What if I say something wrong?
What if you're a real person?
But at the end of the day, you learn one thing really quick, is that no matter who's bargaining on the other side, they put their pants on just like you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, we have a huge advantage. And what I learned real quick with that contract is I've done this job for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
25 in the union. I know how it works. I know, as a matter of fact, the CVS contract was a knockoff of the Irvine Albertsons agreement, which was the contract I worked under. Yeah. It's the one I read. So I knew what was in there. I knew what we needed in there. And at the end of the day, the guy, bargaining on the other side of the table, he's got no clue. You don't know how any of it works, right? So all that you got to do is let them know how, why, and have the guys behind you, the stewards on your committee, back you up on what you're saying. But as long as you know what you're saying, you have the huge advantage over an attorney that's never been on a shop floor, right? So and that contract ended up getting ratified at 100%. Nice. And those guys are one of the main guys there. When Eric and I first won, he had called me and said, hey, I don't know if you'd use names, but he called me and said, hey, you guys are brand new. Our contract's coming up. Can you have come and help you negotiate it? And we're like, hell no, right? and they didn't support us the first time, but after that contract got done, really good deal, changed a ton of language. And to date, we're somewhere around $300,000 being paid out in grievances since we bargained that contract. That now they all, for the most part, they all support us and huge supporters and backed us in the last election, which we needed. And that's how you turn things around, right?
Well, you're doing your job. Like you said, you're never going to get away from the hard work. And it's something that actually I tell my kids, like, whether you're, a plumber.
So you see your kids.
No. It's something I tell them over the phone. So, it's just something
Daddy
I tell my
loves
kids.
you.
But you're never going to get away from the hard work, whether you're
You don't.
whether
you
you're
don't.
humping boxes or you're driving a truck, or you're sitting in the presidency. You're never going to get away from hard work, and we've seen you put the work in, and the fruits of that work have shown, right? And we appreciate you for that. But look, in respect for time, we've been talking about work. We've been going over all that stuff. I think we got a little bit of a grasp of who you are and where you come from, what you've done. Let's get into the lighter side of things. Who is John? I know you don't have any time now, but what did you used to do for fun?
He's a horse guy.
I know.
I used to ride rodeos.
Really?
I live out in Norco, so I have horse property. I have since sold my horses because I don't have time to ride them. But I'd like to play golf when I can, and riding horses out in Norco. We got 130 miles of trails.
So what got you into riding horses? Or is that something you grew up doing?
I grew up with horses. Yeah, I grew up. I was born in Big Bear. And then I grew up in northern Idaho. So,
Oh shit!
And then moved back down to Big Bear when I graduated high school. So I've had horses.
Kind of
Your whole
grew
life,
up rural.
Yeah.
Just
I've ridden bulls. I've
Oh shit! What is that like?
And it's I pissed my pants when I got on a bull. Bull riders, they're a different breed, right?
That's terrifying.
And that was
you're on a
before
2,000
helmets.
panel.
That was before helmets.
Oh yeah,
Now they make you wear
back when I
helmets.
did.
They give you helmets
I have
now?
scars from it still.
fuck. That's
Getting
gnarly.
hooked.
Shit.
Anything else? Horses.
I'd love to ride Harleys, although I don't have a Harley anymore.
What do you like to ride?
I had a Screaming Eagle Road King was the last one I had, and then when I got married, and I have little kids too, so, and my wife's like, bike's got to go, right? So
It's dangerous.
So
Especially in California.
In Southern California.
Yeah, in California it is.
Fucking lane splitting and shit. It gets crazy over
It
here.
gets
I see guys down all the time on my time on the freeways, and it's just like,
Dude, about 3 months
really
ago,
worth it.
I got a little story for you. About 3 months ago, I'm always cognizant of
I always
bikes.
try to
pay
look
attention,
for that. Yeah.
right? So I see this biker coming up, and I get out of his way. I'm all the way in the fast lane, so I get out of his way. He shoots by, gives me a thank you,
I love when they do that.
and I mean, 10 seconds later, everyone slams on the brakes, and I'm like, oh shit, what the fuck,
it's that
right?
guy.
And fucking sure enough, dude, somebody merged out. He was, lane splitting. Fucking smacked the shit out of him, and he's laying there on the floor, dude. I'm like, fucking A. And, it's just weird, just to get over. He acknowledges me, and then I see him 10 seconds later on the fucking floor. It's gnarly, so I get why your wife didn't want you on a bike.
It's a scary thing.
Yeah.
And my kids are everything to me. Like you talked about family, and you got to figure it out. And I remember when Eric and I won, we were about 6-7 months into the administration. When we took over, and literally the first year we worked every day. Yeah. We literally, I don't think we had a day off for 6 months, either one of us, or a lot of us, to be honest with you. And I remember my son came up to me one day and said, "Hey, Dad, do you still want to be the president?" Because when we were campaigning, my daughter and my son were folding their shirts and getting them ready to sell. And they were excited as hell.
Yeah.
They're just like, "Oh, yeah, you're going to be the president. I think you're going to win." And, they're all excited. And then 6 months into it, he's like, and I'm like, "Yeah, well, why do you ask me that?" Because we don't see you anymore, right? And that's where it hits you in the middle of the chest. And you got to say, okay, we've got a balance. So my hobbies now, my son plays travel baseball for BR Baseball out in Norco. Travels all over. He's playing a tournament today that I didn't get to go to because of the meeting. So whenever I can now, I make all that stuff. My daughter does competition dance for Avi's Dance Project out in Riverside. and she has. If you don't have a daughter in dance, don't put her in there, because if you do, I'm telling you, you could buy another house, right? I mean, it blows my mind how much that stuff costs. But my daughter's 11 now. My son just turned 13, and it's all about them. And my wife, is the most supportive. Luckily, they're busy. They don't have cell phones, video games, computers. All as they do is dance. They both play piano. They're both bilingual.
Oh, wow.
They didn't speak English until they were 6.
Yep. And I got to say, you speak Spanish yourself, and I love that.
Yeah, I got an accent that's a little nuts, right? Because I learned when I was older. So my wife at home, because we only speak Spanish at home, so the kids don't lose it and they have a reason to keep it.
That's awesome.
So my wife's kept that up with it. She's never spoke to my kids in English, as a matter of fact, and they're 11 and 13 now.
Wow.
So, it gives them a reason to, because if they want something, they obviously got to speak Spanish to get it, or they're not getting anything. So that gives them the reason to have to keep it, and it's something we're really proud of. A lot of hard work to get them to do that, but yeah, it's kind of funny. You're blonde-haired, blue eyes, and we go places, and they're like, "Where are you guys from?" And we're like, "Yeah,
Norco.
Right? So
That's cool, man. That really is.
so
Cool.
yeah, it's shout out to her, because it's amazing that I wish I would have learned when I was young, because you don't have to work for it. It is
It's much easier to
so it's
retain when
awesome.
you're young. Yeah.
So fun stuff. We always like to give an ode to Mark. Since Mark's show, we like to ask.
Are
our
we going to
guests
do the story time thing?
what-
Or?
Oh, did you want to do the story time first?
I told you I had that one little funny story.
Okay,
about
well
Eric.
let's do story time.
Story time.
Story time.
We're badass Teamsters, right? I mean, tattooed, fucking.
Wait, I think I know where this is going. Go ahead.
We're gonna shove. We're doing the Albertsons contract, right? And we're shoving this shit up that attorney's ass sideways, right?
Yeah.
Badass guys, freaking grocery guys, freaking Shrek. All the.
Yeah.
Shout
all
out
the-
to Shrek.
Yeah.
Shrek, Chalkies, and all.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if Chalkies. We'll figure that one out later. But I mean, a bunch of badass Teamsters, right? We had a drive-through vote. 1,000 people came through.
I remember
a
that.
strike vote.
I remember that.
And I mean, these guys were involved. We're going to tear it up. We're getting a hell of a contract, right? And again, we're bargaining on Zoom. Company's up on the screen, and we're in the hall. We're all at the front table getting ready to bargain. And Eric's famous for his Starbucks, right? I mean, Eric go to Starbucks. He probably goes to Starbucks 3 times a day. I don't know how many times he goes. But if you know Eric, he's a sweet tooth, right?
Yes, he does.
I mean, that dude puts extra sugar in the sugar to put in his drink, right? I mean, he'll drink sugar out of a bowl. I mean, he's a sweet tooth, right? And I remember looking at him
me
going,
some corn
God,
syrup
your
right now."
dentist must hate you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so all these tough grocery guys, shop stewards, we're getting ready to bargain. And I remember I turned around, and every one of them had a Starbucks latte mocha, whatever the hell it is,
Caramel mocha
with
frap.
whipped cream on top. I think they had umbrellas in it. And I turned around.
he loves umbrellas. Eric, shout out to Eric.
All right. So anyway, yeah.
That's great.
So shut out for so that's a joke now.
So that was over Zoom. So the company's hall saw you guys.
So our whole tough guy group all have
With
latte
whipped
mochas
cream
with
down.
whipped cream and umbrellas, right?
Sounds good.
So I'm like, yeah, okay, we're tough. Got it.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's my story time thing for Eric. But yeah, it's
Well, I just want to really tell you, John, you're doing a great job here for this local 952. I appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday to come out and do this with us.
hey,
It means
this
a
is
lot.
awesome, you guys, and this is it's like another tool of getting people involved, right?
Right.
And I'll put it, challenge out to my grocery guys. They're pretty involved, CVS guys, kind of the industries I represent. But, send this thing out. Share it with your friends, because at the end of the day, the more people that watch it, the more we can get on the same page, and the stronger we are when we go in and bargain another contract, right?
Right on.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. We talk about shares and likes and all that stuff. but shares are the most important to us. We just want to get the word out to the membership, get people involved. You know, we actually do get a lot of feedback, even though, you know, a lot of UPSers don't come to the meetings. We do get a lot of feedback from UPSers, and we're starting to get feedback now from CVS and Albertsons and OCTA, and, you know, as it spreads, and other locals, and they want to get involved and they want to do stuff. And it's just, it's really humbling to us. Really, you know, we appreciate everything. But real quick, last segment, we were going into it before, but an ode to Mark Davison. What kind of music do you like? Let's hear it.
Oh God, I listen to a lot of Hispanic music.
Okay.
Country. I love country.
Nice.
But I can, you know, back in the day, I was a Metallica guy, right? Back in the
Nice.
I can listen to pretty much everything. You know, I get a lot of music every day. So my kids with the Spanish thing, I have 107.5 as the set.
Yeah.
Preset station in my radio, so that's what they listen to.
You have a favorite song?
To and from. No, I'm not going to get into that. I'll tell you.
Favorite song?
I'll tell you my favorite.
Sing it.
My favorite concert that I went to was Shakira.
Really?
Oh,
really?
she's probably
Unbelievable.
She's probably so good
Unbelievable.
live.
Since you're not going to
concert.
sing, can you do?
No,
Shakira
hips don't lie, bro. Okay, so, but my wife and I went to it, and my wife, I mean, she knows every Shakira song word for word.
That's cool.
That's her favorite artist.
Dude,
so we saw her
Shakira.
at the Pond,
yeah, she's
right,
hot.
Yeah.
or whatever it's called now.
Or
the Honda Center or whatever.
Honda Center.
Then it was the Pond, so we saw her there, and it was funny. We were like, my wife's like, we got to be able to get out of the parking lot. So she knew the song list, and before the last encore, she's like, all right, let's get out of here, right? I was like, okay, cool. So we get out, we walk around, we get in our car, and I don't know how long it took us to get there, but we were about 4 rows back from where you guys drive through going over to UPS.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were like 4 rows back from there. All of a sudden, we get ready to start the car, and Shakira plops up on a car, 2 cars in front of us on the roof, and does another song out in the parking lot.
Wow.
And I was just like,
Really?
unbelievable, right? I mean, it was just, we were just sitting there like,
And they just had cameras
How did
on
it-
it, or what?
yeah, it was, yeah, it had speakers out there blaring, and she sang another song in the parking lot.
That's
fucking
top of the car.
awesome.
So I was like, yeah, that was
cool.
Solid
a
show.
badass concert.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, like I said, you know, I wish we had all the time in the world to talk, because I think we could. It's been a great show. We are super thankful, humble. You know, like I said, we just appreciate you coming on, spending your Sunday with us. You know, obviously you had the meetings this morning. You know, I know you got kids to get back to. So do I, and I just, you know, George and Sal, same thing. We're all here spending our Sunday, so we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you guys.
Shout out to, you know, to 952, to the Teamsters as a whole. You know, maybe we'll do a segment on it later, but we got to go to the IBT and just see in Washington, D.C., and just kind of see what the Teamsters have built and where we're going, and the new direction with Sean. And it's fucking amazing, man. So we're all on board. We appreciate you, John. Thank you for everything you've done for us, for the local. I'll tell you, you know, the direction has been amazing. So thanks for tuning in, guys. You know, for tuning in another week. Hopefully we'll catch you here next Friday. Next Friday we release. And thank you. Like, share, subscribe. But share, please.
Please
Thank
share.
you.
Also, email us at ocst.000@gmail.com. And then whatever you want in there. Anything.
Yeah.
I'll take anything at this point.
Comments, constructive criticism. Don't be a fucking asshole. But hey, before we end real quick, I'm not going to forget. We got to, you know, the way we're going to round out the show. Fuck you, Sabas.
Wow.
Thank you, guys.